This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
Amid fear, death and violence, Pakistan goes to the polls to vote on members for its central parliament and 4 regional parliaments. There are about 80 million eligible voters in Pakistan, but turnout is expected to be low due to several factors such as the loss of confidence in the political circles and the spread of violence. The opposition holds firm to its principles in the elections, threatening of a civil war if the votes were rigged to favor President Musharraf. Mahoob Khudur reports from Islamabad.
The polling stations in the capital, Islamabad, indicate very little enthusiasm for the decisive elections.
So far, the voting process is going smoothly and calmly. 200 have voted, and security arrangements have been adequate. In general, I'm satisfied with the process.
Against the backdrop of violence and the recent attack outside of the capital, there is no room for neglecting security. However, the scene at polling stations suggests a poor turnout, especially among women voters, as seen at this polling place. Meanwhile, members of political parties have a strong presence at the polls, overseeing the voting process and ensuring the fairness of the procedures.
Our job as party representatives is to make sure no fraud takes place by cross-checking the names of people who come to vote with the names provided on the list.
As a result of distrusting politics and politicians, as well as the general condition in the country, many people regard this election as nothing more than a routine procedure.
I do not think that this election will bring about any positive change for the country. Violence has become the master of the situation here.
For some people, these elections are an opportunity to express their rejection of President Musharraf's policy by preventing him from winning the majority.
I'm voting for Nawaz Sharif because he promised to prosecute the killers of the students at the Red Mosque.
The opposition, the Pakistani People's Party, warned of a civil war if the government rigs the election results. Meanwhile, President Pervez Musharraf expressed his optimism that the ruling majority party, which supports him, will get most of the votes. The parliamentary elections began under high security alert. The initial images in the capital Islamabad show a modest participation. Pervez Musharraf described this election as the mother of all elections, but the opposition cast doubts about the fairness of the election even before they began. Mahoob Khudur, Dubai TV, Islamabad.
Hello there. Polling stations in Pakistan are reporting a low turnout as voting drew to a close in Pakistan's parliamentary elections.
It's a key step towards democracy after 8 years of military rule, but many voters are reported to have stayed away, some through apathy, others because of fears over security. 400,000 soldiers and police have managed to keep relative calm after pre-election violence killed dozens of people.
But as the president himself voted, he called for reconciliation and said he'd work with whichever party wins.
This is a historic and important day. The whole world is watching us. It is up to us to show the whole world how responsible we are as a nation and how we can have free and fair elections. And we are ready to accept the election results.
Well, Al Jazeera's Imran Khan's been putting Musharraf's assertions to the test. He spent the day with a team of European election monitors to find out what they made of the voting process.
Under armed guard, the European Union election observers arrived to begin their work at a polling station in central Karachi. They'll spend an average of 25 minutes at each of the stations they visit. This is Mindegas Meshias. He's Lithuanian, and it's his first time in Pakistan. He jokes with me about Karachi's traffic, but he's serious about his work. However, their work is limited to observation only.
We observe election day, and we are going to polling stations, and we are going to see how this whole process is unfolding. We'll look how election administration is following the procedures. Are voters allowed to freely vote? Are eligible voters have a chance to vote? And later on the day we'll see are the votes counted in a proper manner. For today, we chose our polling stations randomly. We will see how it unfolds.
As he speaks to people and makes notes, he's already found a major cause for concern. These ballot boxes have been sealed, but no record has been made of when, and no certificate of sealing has been issued. The head of the European Union has already expressed concern over how free and fair the election can be, though the Pakistani presiding officer here maintains that the EU have complete access.
Anytime, if you come anytime, we will give you the each and every information, and your information will be at what time, how much votes are cost, that is.
The European Union has 119 observers dotted across the country, which it says allows for coverage of around 2/3 of the voting. That'll take place at some 60,000 polling stations, serving over 80 million registered voters. Even including all of the international organisations that have sent their own observers, it's estimated that there are only 1,000 people monitoring the vote. More were promised, but several key organisations did not send, citing security concerns. These elections are controversial. Many in the opposition have talked of ghost polling stations and fraud. The observers are here to make notes, not prevent any wrongdoing. And what they find will be known in just a few days' time. Imran Khan, Al Jazeera, Karachi.
Let's move to Afghanistan, where a second suicide attack in 24 hours has killed at least 35 civilians. Local officials say the bomb appeared to be aimed at Canadian soldiers. It happened in Spinboldak, a busy market town near the southern border with Pakistan. The NATO-led International Security Assistance Force said 3 of its soldiers were wounded.
Around 100 victims from Sunday's suicide attack are being buried on Monday. The Taliban has denied responsibility for the blast, the deadliest in Afghanistan in 7 years.
The bomber struck during an organised dogfight in Kandahar. The apparent target, a key anti-Taliban tribal leader, was killed in the blast. Bernard Smith has more from Kabul.
One of possibly as many as 100 funerals being held in Kandahar following Sunday's devastating suicide bombing. This one, though, drew the biggest crowd. It's for the man thought to have been the main target of the attack. Abdul Hakim Jan was an elder of a prominent anti-Taliban tribe in Kandahar, the Alakozai. 6 months ago, they were warned to allow the Taliban into their district, northwest of Kandahar city. Those demands were resisted.
I've no doubt the Taliban did this. Time and again, they told Abdul Hakim Jan to leave the district, but he ignored them. The Taliban want to control this area because it's only 5 kilometers from the center of Kandahar. If they control here, then they can easily get into Kandahar city. A while ago, they also killed 10 of Abdul Hakim Jan's friends at a checkpoint in the district.
The scene of the bombing is littered with body parts and weapons. Hundreds of men and children had gathered to watch a dogfighting competition. Kandahar province is Taliban heartland, one of the most dangerous places in Afghanistan. But the area of the attack had been seen as comparatively safe, mainly because of the Alakozai tribe. A Taliban spokesman denies any responsibility for the attack.
A state of cautious calm returned to Lebanon's capital after a series of sporadic clashes between supporters of the majority and the opposition. The clashes took place in the last 24 hours and resulted in many injuries. The Lebanese army met with representatives from the different political parties whose supporters participated in the clashes to find a final solution to end the provocation on the ground.
نامت شوارع بيروت على توتر بعد جولة من الاشتباكات المتنقلة.
Beirut streets slept tensely after a round of sporadic clashes broke out between different areas in the heart of the capital. This completely paralyzed some of the streets as young men from the Future Party clashed with others from Hezbollah and the Amal movement. Many people were injured by sticks, knives, and rocks, with the damage to cars and property showing the magnitude of the heated clashes that spanned many hours. The area's residents observed in shock as the fights broke out between young men separated only by a few meters. The clashes aggravated the already tense political situation that was caused by statements of rival parties. The Lebanese army quickly contacted the leaders of the political parties of the clashing youth.
قيادة الجيش اللبناني سارعت عقب ذلك إلى إجراء اتصالات بالقيادات السياسية التي يتبع إليها المتقاتلون.
The leaders had promised to control the street, but they did not fulfill these promises, which drove the army to increase the level of its involvement and its measures to stop the violations. There is a sense that there are people trying to create new lines of hostility between the neighborhoods in the middle of the capital. The sensitivity of the situation led to a meeting in the office of the head of intelligence in the army, which was attended by security officials from the Future Party, Amal, and Hezbollah. An agreement was reached to work on the ground to stop the renewal of clashes. Political observers described this highly tense and provocative situation on the streets of Beirut, which has been evident since 2005, as an echo of the escalating political situation between Lebanese leaders. Amin Abu Yahya, Al-Arabiya.
بين الزعماء اللبنانيين. أمين أبو يحيى، العربية.
The Haaretz newspaper is reporting that progress has been made in negotiations over the release of captured IDF soldier Gilad Shalit. According to the paper, Israel and Hamas have agreed on the identities of 230 Palestinian prisoners Israel would release to win Shalit's freedom. The breakthrough apparently came after Israel decided to ease its criteria for terrorists with blood on their hands. However, Prime Minister Ehud Olmert said that he does not necessarily agree with the reports regarding negotiations over Shalit's release or those suggesting that he is considering declaring kidnapped IDF soldiers Ehud Goldwasser and Eldad Regev dead. He was speaking last night in Jerusalem at a gathering of the Conference of Presidents of Major Jewish Organizations.
Unfortunately, I can't share the optimism about Gilad Shalit, and I'm not prepared to accept a judgment about the two abducted Israeli soldiers in the north. I don't plan anything. I act on the basis that they are alive because we have no other information, no evidence that they are not alive. And as long as we will not have this evidence, we will continue to act on the basis that they are alive. And we are making efforts to bring back Gilad Shalit, serious efforts. But I'm certainly not prepared to share the headlines made in the last couple of days that this is imminent every day. It will take time, unfortunately.
There's been significant improvement in the condition of the IDF soldier from the elite Sayeret Matkal commando unit who was seriously wounded yesterday during an operation in Gaza. The soldier was injured when his unit stormed a group of terrorists in southern Gaza, killing them. He was evacuated by helicopter to Soroka Hospital in Beersheba, where doctors struggled to save his life. He is now listed in moderate condition and is out of immediate danger. PA Chairman Mahmoud Abbas said that there has been little progress in peace negotiations with Israel since the Annapolis conference, and that there is no sense in putting off talks about such core issues as Jerusalem or the refugees. Abbas stressed that the Palestinians are still opposed to the definition of Israel as a Jewish state. However, the Palestinian leader said he is still confident that it is possible to reach an agreement within the year. Prime Minister Olmert said that he and Abbas agreed that Jerusalem would be the final issue on the agenda. Abbas and Olmert are set to meet again in the near future to discuss final status agreements. Palestinian negotiator Saib Erekat said the two will also discuss the situation in Gaza and ways to ease tensions there.
France's Foreign Minister Bernard Kouchner urged Israel to lift its blockade on the Gaza Strip and described the situation as intolerable. Upon arrival in Ramallah, Kouchner urged the Palestinian Authority to combat what he referred to as terrorist movements. He also demanded Israel freeze settlement activities in the West Bank. During his visit to Israel and the Palestinian territories, Kouchner will discuss the peace process and the latest developments in the Gaza Strip. Kouchner is expected to meet tonight with the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. In addition, he will meet with Israel's Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, as well as Israel's defense and foreign ministers.
Meanwhile, the Islamic Jihad held a funeral procession for the 8 martyrs killed by an explosion at the home of Ayman al-Fayed, a leader in the Jerusalem Brigades, the military wing for the Islamic Jihad. The explosion targeted al-Fayed's home in the Burej refugee camp in the central Gaza Strip. Hundreds of people took part in the funeral procession, which also included a military parade by the Jerusalem Brigades. The blast also killed al-Fayed's wife and his daughter and wounded more than 40 others. The Islamic Jihad said that the explosion was the result of an attack by the Israeli army, which denied responsibility and said it did not carry out any military activities in the area.
We are joined with our correspondent in Gaza, Samir Abu Shamala. Samir, what is the current situation in Gaza? Do you have any new information on the explosion?
الوضع في قطاع غزة بشكل عام هو في حالة الهدوء النسبي ولكن قبل قليل تم
Generally speaking, a relative calm has returned to the Gaza Strip. A short while ago, the funeral procession for the 8 martyrs killed in the explosion that targeted the home of Ayman al-Fayed in the Burej camp in the central Gaza Strip ended. Al-Fayed was a prominent leader in the Jerusalem Brigades, the military wing for the Islamic Jihad. Among the martyrs were al-Fayed's wife and daughter and several civilians in the neighborhood. In addition, the blast caused substantial property damage to several homes in the area. The Islamic Jihad, which organized a military parade during the funeral procession, threatened tough and painful retaliation against Israel, which is accused of carrying out the attack on al-Fayed's home. The Islamic Jihad held Israel fully responsible for the blast, which it says was caused by surface-to-surface missile fired from an Israeli launcher across the eastern border with Gaza near the Burej refugee camp. In another development, the Hamas movement demanded the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas suspend all talks with Israel in light of the ongoing military attacks against the Palestinians. The situation in the Gaza Strip is taking a dangerous turn to the worse after the attack on al-Fayed's home, which is located in a busy residential neighborhood. Several Palestinian factions expressed angry reactions and held Israel responsible for the explosion. On the other hand, the Israeli army denied the allegations and said that they didn't carry out any military activities in the targeted area at the time of the blast. In addition, the Israeli Air Force denied carrying out any surveillance operations over the area of the Burej refugee camp. Meanwhile, the Palestinians continue to live amidst fear, anger, stalemate, and security deterioration as many martyrs continue to fall in various parts of the Gaza Strip. As far as the explosion is concerned, we don't know for sure, but some conflicting reports said it might be an inside job. Meanwhile, the Nasser Salah ad-Din brigades, the military wing for the Popular Resistance Committees, claimed responsibility for launching 10 rockets into southern Israel, including the area of the West Negev and the settlement of Sderot, in response for the ongoing Israeli attacks.
Thank you very much, Samir Abu Shamala, our correspondent in Gaza.
تستذكر الجزائر ككل سنة في 13 فبراير ذكرى السلسلة.
On the 13th of February of every year, Algerians commemorate the series of nuclear tests that were carried out by colonial France in the Algerian desert in the 60s. The area of Ragan and Ain Yakar and Taman Rasta were shaken by the force of nuclear explosions, which were 3 times more powerful than the Hiroshima bomb. These nuclear tests will always be present in the minds of Algerians because of the devastation they have caused. Their effects are still felt today. More details provided by Jauda Badr.
عاجزة تبقى الكلمات في وصف هول هذه الصور التي حدثت ذات 13 فبراير من سنة 1960.
Words fail to describe the devastation caused by these explosions, which happened on the 13th of April, 1960. On that day, nuclear rays went as far as 200 kilometers away from Ragan. It was the first French nuclear test in the Algerian desert. The force of this bomb was 3 times that of the bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima. France did not care about humans or nature in Algeria. The nuclear test known as Al-Yarbu al-Azraq has tragic results that cannot be erased with time. France tested the destructive power of their weapons in the area of Ragan and Ain Yakkar in Tamin Ras on more than 250 mujahideen, or freedom fighters. These 2 areas were used as a laboratory to test the most lethal weapons known to humankind. The explosion, which released red, white, and green fumes, was like the day of rapture. It left destructive effects on the area and its residents. Dangerous ailments such as tumorous cancer, chronic allergies, and loss of sight spread in the surrounding areas. Not to mention that all forms of vegetation that the area was known for disappeared forever. The details of these nuclear tests were kept secret, but their effects are visible to everyone. The French used people like lab animals. The radiation that was caused by the explosion and absorbed by the soil will stay for thousands of years.
استعمار اختار أن يستعمل البشر فئران تجارب ناهيك عما تكبدته الأرض من إشعاعات بحسب المختصين ستمتد إلى آلاف السنين.
Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad told visiting UAE Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum that foreign interference fails to affect Tehran-Abu Dhabi ties. The president said the 2 countries can have cooperation and sustainable security in the region as they safeguard their own rights. President Ahmadinejad added Iran will willingly transfer its achievements to the United Arab Emirates. The UAE Premier, for his part, dismissed Western claims that Iran is a threat to regional states, arguing nations in the region do share many common ground. He added the 2 nations can complete each other by upgrading economic ties. And talks between high-ranking delegations of Iran and the UAE got underway in Tehran. First Vice President Parviz Davoudi and the UAE Prime Minister emerged from the meeting to talk to reporters. Davoudi said today's trip could hopefully make a dramatic change in mutual relations. Davoudi said Iran-UAE Joint Economic Commission due to be held shortly will follow up economic agreements, and the economy ministers will pave the way for their implementation. Turning to Iran's nuclear case, Davoudi said their talks underscore Tehran's right of peaceful nuclear technology. His guest, in turn, hoped his Tehran visit could win the 2 states considerable gains. Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum wound up his hours-long trip a while ago and left for Damascus. Iran's Guardian Council has so far confirmed the credentials of 562 parliament hopefuls of the March the 14th vote and unveiled the list to the Interior Ministry. Head of the ministry's information center, Mohammad Hossein Musapour, said the oversight body endorsed 282 candidates in the first place, out of which the names of 8 contenders had been wrongly included among those rejected. He added the second phase of the review saw another 288 names introduced to the ministry as verified to stand for the chamber. Musapour further hoped more names come out around in coming days to see more competitiveness as injected for the crucial polls. And a message by Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad opened an international conference on Muslim women in Tehran. 50 foreign and 800 Iranian think tanks have gathered there to discuss spirituality, chastity, and family. Foreign Minister Manouchehr Moteki told the opening session the lack of spirituality has seen the West stranded in a deadlock, adding the political, social, economic and cultural vacuums are threatening the world. Moteki said women are all active in the society, adding the onus is on the Islamic countries to set the stage for a still more active part of females. He said Iran has done a big job to help Muslim women make their voice heard in international circles. He then voiced Iran's readiness to wear the mantle of organizer in women's questions at national, regional and international levels.
Jordan ranked first in education out of 14 Middle East and North African countries, thus adding another facet of Jordanian achievement. The remaining challenge, however, is to maintain it and further improve it. More in the following report.
The World Bank's certificate confirms the high quality of education in Jordan. It comes as a result of many decades of persistent efforts and a combination of many factors across the various levels of education.
الأردن أصبح هناك بسبب سياسات التعليم العالي وسياسات
Jordan has achieved this by implementing policies in institutions of higher education and by focusing on quality control across the educational process, from elementary schools to universities. The setting and environment of Jordanian universities is exceptional. This is true. We have homes of experience.
الجامعية في الجامعات الأردنية هناك في تميز وهذا حقيقي إنه لدينا بيوت خبرة.
There are many characteristics of this educational climate, most notably in regards to the quantity and quality of graduates fulfilling the demands of the workforce.
Identifying the specializations needed by the workforce is our focus. We also pay attention to student applications for enrollment in university. For some of the specialized fields, we also test the various skills of the students. All this is towards improving the quality of the incoming students.
كل هذا بهدف تحسين المدخلات التي تلتحق بالجامعة.
The large number of Arab and foreign students enrolled in Jordanian universities in a variety of disciplines is an important and exceptional testament to the level of education in Jordan.
Education in Jordan is more advanced than the neighboring Arab countries. Without mentioning names, the quality is especially good in public universities.
The increasing number of Jordanian graduates working abroad is another reflection of the high caliber of our graduates who supply the regional and the global markets with skill.
الخريج الجامعات الأردنية
Graduates of Jordanian universities have proved themselves in local, Arab and world markets as having superior skills.
It is important, however, to also attend to the foundations or the infrastructure of university education. In other words, school education, including the students, teachers, curricula, and other fine details.
Maybe in regards to the English language, they don't teach us English very well as young children, so we have a lot of difficulty when we come to universities. If they provided us a strong foundation in English as children, we would not have a hard time as adults. Schools vary in their teaching of English, so it's really hard for some of us.
The report of the World Bank on education in Jordan, as compared to the region, affirms that the path of investing in human capital, which started several decades ago, is reaping fruit. It is still important, however, to continue to identify and fix the weaknesses. Hayan Majali, reporting for 60 Minutes.
Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/Mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.